So, it's been almost a year since I put up my studio build video, and I've had a lot of comments on YouTube and a lot of Instagram messages, a lot of emails off the website for the studio, just asking very similar questions. So I thought I'd cover some of those today. So the first question I get asked a lot is what the full cost of the build is. Now, instead of putting the full cost of the build just out in the public, on public domain, if you'd really like to know and you'd like a breakdown of where I spent money on things that I could have saved, what I would have spent more money on, why things were so pricey, if you just follow me on Instagram, I can let you know on there just in a private message. The second comment I've had quite a lot is the fact that there's not much space in here. It's a bit disappointing that no matter what sort of camera angles I get in here, it always seems a lot smaller than it actually is. There's a considerable amount of space in here. The live room's 13 foot by 7 foot, which actually is a lot bigger than it sounds. And the control room is 7 by 7. So the control room is much smaller. And I'll go into the reasons of why I made the control room smaller in a minute. But generally, the space in here, it is big enough to have kit and guitar and bass all tracking at the same time, if needs be. The camera angles I get in here, unfortunately, don't give a very good perspective of the amount of space that I've actually got to play with. So the reason I've gone for a smaller control room and a larger live room is because the original idea for this space was for me to have my own personal development space, my own practice room. As a professional musician, it's really difficult sometimes to find a space which feels creative and feels like you can just blast those long, horrible notes out a million times. You're practicing exercises without having anybody else listening and judging you, and it's a safe space, a safe creative space. And while I was developing that idea for a practice room, I came to realize that actually I could turn it into a studio as well, and then not only have my practice space but also make a little bit of money as well. A lot of people have suggested that I should have put 2 containers next to each other or got a 40-foot container instead of a 20-foot container. You can also get 30-foot containers. The reason I didn't go for that is just purely cost. This cost me X amount to build. A 40-foot container or putting another container next to this to create a bigger space, it simply would have doubled the cost, which was just too expensive for me. And as somebody who is mostly in here just playing trumpet, and most of the stuff that is in here is recording horn sections, that sort of stuff, I don't actually physically need the space. An incredibly common comment on that video is the fact that I used this thin foam to complete the acoustic treatment of the control room. My budget was starting to get a little bit thin by the end of the build, and so I decided that I would rather spend some money on some of the gear that I needed and actually get that set up than have a control room that was properly treated to start with. The control room has now been treated, which you can see here. It sounds a million times better. I mean, the guys at GIK Acoustics walked me through everything that I would need based on where my windows were, the shape of the room, everything like that. Those guys are absolutely fantastic. And I mean, the room sounds a million times better now. So really, the reason for using that thin foam is just because it was just all becoming a bit too expensive to start with. Next up is the temperature inside the container. It does get cold in here. I've got an oil heater that I put on for maybe 20 minutes in the morning during the winter, and that just warms it for pretty much the rest of the day, to be honest. Once it gets warm in here, it stays warm. Once it gets cold, you need to warm it up, otherwise it's going to stay cold. During the summer, it can get a little bit hot in here, only really if you've got sort of 5+ people all wandering in and out. But if it's just me, it's a beautiful day outside today. I'm in here in a jumper, if anything, a tiny bit on the cold side. The container maintains whatever temperature it is very well. If you'd like to have a listen to something that was recorded in here to give yourself an idea of what's possible by creating your own studio, if you listen to Hi-Fi Lo-Fi's Awake, that was recorded, mixed, filmed and edited in this studio and is the perfect example of what can be done when you have just put a studio together by yourself. One of the most commented things in the video, weirdly, is the XLR keychain that I have to just to plug into my studio so that I know where my keys are. If you would like one of these, add me on Instagram and I can make one for you. Thank you very much, guys. If you've got any more questions, follow me on Instagram, send me a message. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I hope the original video or this video has helped inspire you to create your own studio space or your own photography studio or do something amazing with a shipping container. Thank you very much for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed it.